Every year, 60,000 New Zealanders are hurt in violent attacks. And with 25,000 illegal firearms out among our population and countless other weapons readily available, this statistic is a chilling reality. Tonight, we investigate the problem of violence in New Zealand and look at the criminal fascination with weapons.
It's not a thing you use to cut your Sunday roast.
We look at who wields them.
Well, I swung again. As I did, the dumb just walked straight into it.
Hear from their victims.
I don't remember a thing about what happened.
And meet the new face of violence.
There's one hiding coming around here. I'll interview us. Come on. And I said, New Zealand too.
While most of us traditionally think of weapons being guns or knives, almost anything can be used to inflict harm. A fist, a boot, or even a piece of wood. And when alcohol combines with aggression, our streets can become very dangerous places.
We admit about 150 patients a year to this department who have severe head injury. And by that we mean brain injury. People assault each other, first of all, most commonly with fists, and then when the person is down with boots. But there's a steady trickle of clubs of various kinds. Baseball bats, softball bats, crowbars, tire irons, fence palings, bits of 4x2, tree branches, table legs, spades, hammers, all of that.
Police get over 1,000 calls each week to violent offences. And while offenders usually target each other, often innocent people get caught in the crossfire. Brendan Hareb discovered this at great cost when he and a couple of neighbours went to investigate a disturbance on their street.
Brendan found there was a group of 4 youths had been drinking and were just smashing the letterboxes up. And Brendan got separated somehow, which is when he was attacked. Brendan was knocked unconscious and then he was kicked and stomped. One member of the group grabbed a fence baton and just started laying into him.
I don't remember a thing about what happened before or after. Just blink.
I went down looking for Brendan and found him in the middle of the road dying. He was lying there with blood coming out of his ears, having trouble breathing. I was just numb, really. Yeah. Unbelievable what I came across.
It was just a frenzied attack with a group who'd been drinking. Yeah, I just don't think that the offenders were aware of the damage they were doing. Or if they were aware, they were so intoxicated they didn't care.
He had a blood clot on the front left of his brain, blood clot on the back of his right side of his brain. His eye popped, one lung was damaged, lost a couple more teeth, and one ear was damaged.
Initially, I honestly didn't expect that he was going to live, and we were looking at this as a homicide.
Of the people that we're talking about who have blunt interpersonal violence, 10% of them will die. And the others have had, almost all of them, severe brain injury. And they will have consequences for the rest of their lives.
Well, don't have put it I'm totally lost. Can't think what I could do, what I can't do there. And just really frustrating. And I miss my license.
Our whole lives have been turned upside down. There's just nothing left. It's absolutely devastated the whole family. There's not much left of the family. So it's just destroyed it.
Brendan lost his left eye, his short-term memory, and he can no longer work. And for that, the main offender, Jesse Dolman, went to jail for 12 years. It's the callousness of street violence that makes it so disturbing, and even more so, as in Brendan's case, because it's often teenagers who are responsible. Youth violence has risen by an incredible 25% in just 1 year, driven by the growth in street gangs. And their behaviour is random and dumb, and that makes it very, very dangerous. We wanted to find out what's behind this violence, so youth worker Christian has arranged for our team to meet with several members of a well-known South Auckland street gang. Like many of the street gangs, this group has evolved out of suburbia, and they eyes gang culture. We're not going to tell you the name of this gang, nor are we going to show you their colours, because that is just the sort of exposure they're after.
They're not scared of shite, man, and they'll throw down with anyone. They'll use anything to kind of protect their patch. You know, this is tribalism at its rawest. It's a turf war, and in order to stay the king of the castle, they'll do whatever, and I mean whatever. And it's important, Mia, that if I make the call to get out of there, let's get on our bikes and start pedalling, because if something turns to custard, you know, safety is foremost. A pretty volatile situation we're getting into, so, you know, if I make the call, we're out.
When we arrived at the neutral location, we found the gang had been drinking all afternoon and many were carrying weapons.
Well, considering that you got a fucking big light up in my face, eh?
While there's an edge to the air, the gang were keen to talk about the reason they terrorise our streets.
Ever since we grew up, we seen this shit.
We see it every day on the streets. Before.
You know, there's a famous saying they say, what the monkey see, the monkey do. That's just like us. We see our big people do that shit. We come and do the same shit. We don't care if you're from Mangry or Otara, you know? Just don't come rip your shit up in our neighbourhood.
This is our neighbourhood.
This is our neighbourhood.
We grew up on this shit.
We rip shit up, straight ghetto style, you know? That shit.
It's a dangerous combination: youth, bravado and little ambition. For these boys, it's all about protecting their patch, and they certainly are not thinking about consequences.
The trademark, that's the whole point about this, is a trademark. You leave your trademark. You them, that's the whole point of it. Whatever comes into our hands, them.
Whatever we got, whatever we can use to win, we use it. I don't care what it is, how much it weighs, I will slam it on your ass.
You tell me, a boxer against a street fighter with a machine, who would win?
I will win.
Yeah! That's right. And you hide it, eh? And when you're walking, when you see the cops, you know, you smile and you wave, you know? Wherever the weapon fits, you know, like if it fits, seal it, like, it just slides easy, eh? And you can't even tell that I've got that, eh? Can't even tell that I got that.
Inexplicably, the mood changed, and firsthand we witnessed the willingness with which these thugs will use their weapons, even on each other.
We don't necessarily need weapons, eh?
What else is
Because
it?
every time we go, we have every other weapon. So we're gonna have it to defend ourselves.
You think I'm scared? I'm scared. I'm not scared to kill somebody. So everybody know us. Everybody know us. I will f***ing kill some motherfuckers. Anybody
ain't a thing, Jesus.
I'll tell you now,
the camera. And I said, New Zealand too. Why he's on here? Why he's on here?
He's one of hiding, coming around here to interview us. He's one of hiding.
We use whatever. Cookie.
Our team made a hasty retreat to safety, but we later found out what went on.
The shit.
This boy here slashed this guy with a machete. He needed 26 stitches to his arm. After the break, we look at the devastating impact when weapons are used in the home.
Oh my God! Oh, hurry, please!
And later, the kinds of illegal weapons making it across our borders.
Mines, rocket launchers, grenades, Molotov cocktails.
Domestic violence is already a massive problem in New Zealand. The police are called out at least 120 times every day. alcohol and emotion certainly exacerbate the issues. And when you combine this with readily available household items like knives, it makes for a deadly combination.
So you'd never met him before? So the first time you spoke with him was that night?
That night on the telephone.
Okay.
The man on the left is Detective Steve Pivac. The man on the right is Jim. And this is the man they're talking about, Reuben.
And then I rang up to say goodnight and I love you and that.
Yep.
And I could hear him mouthing off in the background.
Okay.
So I asked who the he was.
Yep.
And then she goes, oh, don't worry, it's just and he was still mouthing off, so we'll put him on the phone, let's see what he's got to say.
Uh-huh.
And then that's when he started off.
So when he's mouthing off, what sort of things was he saying?
Well, I'm with your Mrs. T-Nut. You got no balls, you were ballsless. If you had any balls, you'd be up here in front of me up about it. And that's when I said, I see you in fight.
Jim headed to his ex-girlfriend Mary's house, where Reuben was drinking with Mary and her sister Catherine.
He armed himself with a hunting knife. In the meantime, he knew that he may come around, so he was a bit nervous, understandably. So what have you gone up there to do there?
Confront him about it.
Confront him, yeah, about what he's been saying to you?
Yeah, who the hell is he standing in my missus' place talking like that?
He got to the back door and he stood there and he listened. And when he thought that it was safe for him to enter, he did so, immediately pulling out the knife.
I'll kill you!
All I know is he got up and he was saying something, and then we both had a swing at each other.
Yep.
And then all I remember is the knife being stuck in his face, or the handle being stuck in my hand.
Right.
Piece of shit!
The force of the blow was so violent the blade snapped, but not before piercing right through Reuben's cheekbone, embedding itself in his head.
What have you done? What have you done?
This is 16-year-old Catherine's actual 111 call.
What's the problem there? What's happened?
He's been stabbed in the eye, like in the face.
What was he stabbed with?
No!
Man, what was he stabbed with?
A knife.
Okay. Are they holding down the guy that stabbed him?
Yes.
Okay.
Sort of. They're coming. You're right. They're coming. No, you're right. Oh, hurry, please.
Am I okay?
Please hurry.
If they come, all right, I've got people coming to help you, okay?
Thank you. Oh my gosh.
When police arrived, Jim and Mary had taken off, leaving 16-year-old Catherine with Reuben and a potentially life-threatening situation.
I was absolutely shocked, yet he was still living and breathing with this knife blade completely through his head. Secondly, he was also lucky because when the knife had snapped, it left him without a weapon, so he couldn't continue his attack, and it's my view that he would have continued to stab him and probably kill him had he still had the weapon.
After the stabbing, Reuben left New Zealand and Jim was sentenced to 10.5 years in jail. In this case, the knife Jim used is classed as a weapon of opportunity. That is, an everyday object that becomes potentially lethal when wielded with a malicious intent. But with organised crime, weapons are designed for just one purpose. They are often sourced offshore through international crime syndicates. In one shipment alone this year, customs officers seized over 500 daggers and flick knives.
Most of the weapons that we intercept are found at the mail centre in international mail, but also at the international air terminals where they're taken off passengers found in their baggage. For example, here we've got a sword stick. This actually came from Zimbabwe. They look like a walking stick, but they hide a very sharp, dangerous weapon. There's another one here. There's actually two weapons in one. There's the long sword blade. There's also the shorter stabbing blade. Other hidden weapons, this is an umbrella, but inside is a very sharp spike that would certainly cause a major injury. We have hairbrushes that once again function as real hairbrushes, but inside there's a horrible sharp spike. Things like knuckle dusters. This one incorporates also a knife, and that's the traditional knuckle duster. We have a more elaborate version, this one which also incorporates a knuckle duster, but imagine the damage that these spikes would do. You know, it's not a thing you use to cut your Sunday roast.
And what makes these weapons illegal is the very clear intention for use.
Traditionally made solely for stabbing. The other class of weapon is the restricted weapon. It covers things like mines, rocket launchers, grenades, Molotov cocktails, but it also covers some personal weapons. We've got CS gas, tear gas, and pepper spray. We also have the stun guns of various types, but we have some disguised ones. These items are found all around the world. In some countries they're totally legal, but they're certainly not legal here.
After the break, what police are seizing as they crack down on organised crime.
Military-style semi-automatic. A Norinco light machine gun, 7.62. This weapon here, frightening-looking weapon, referred to as a G3.
There are over 1 million legal guns in this country. That's one for every 4 of us. To own one, the rules are simple. You have to be 16 or over and have a firearms licence. But it's when these things get into the wrong hands that the problems arise.
Pistols are easily concealed, be that on their person, down the back of their trousers, down the front of their trousers, in their vehicle, under the seat of their car, in the boot of their car, somewhere in close proximity so that should they need to access them, they're readily available, but difficult for us to find.
And unfortunately, there's an active black market for illegal guns in New Zealand.
There's evidence that a pistol that may fetch $700 legitimately may sell on the black market for somewhere in the vicinity of $7,000. So there is a lot of money to be made in the trading of firearms. It's our belief that the majority of those weapons are in the hands of people that shouldn't have them.
Police have long found that where there are illegal weapons, there's also an association with drugs and gangs.
What we're seeing is organised criminal groups, gangs, becoming well entrenched in the use and dealing in firearms as well as drugs. They're happy to use those firearms as well.
For officers like Chris, it's an ongoing battle to get weapons away from gangs.
Kim Smith was a member of the Outcast motorcycle gang here in Hamilton. He held the position of Sergeant-at-Arms, which means that he's in charge of taking care of retribution matters, taking care of the security of the gang, making sure that debts are paid, and where they're not paid, that any debt is enforced.
His case is just one example of gang dealings in weapons. In 2004, when Smith went bush after missing a court appearance relating to illegal weapons and an armed robbery, police weren't surprised at what they uncovered.
As part of the investigation, we had a large area to search, and it's a 35-hectare property. We found 2 things which were of great significance to us. One was a clandestine lab used for making methamphetamine that had been packaged and secreted in the bush. And the other was a large black pelican case. Now this contained a large number of firearms that were broken down and secured. The first was this one, military-style semi-automatic. A Norinco light machine gun, 7.62. Another Norinco, 7.62mm semi-automatic. In a poor state of health, this one, but just as effective. This weapon here, frightening-looking weapon, referred to as a G3. Powerful, powerful weapon. As we tried to find where these firearms came from, it became obvious to us that there was a hole in the system, that these firearms were disappearing, somehow getting into New Zealand, and we weren't keeping track of them. Who were the owners? How did they get to be in the hands of the Sergeant-at-Arms of the Outcasts? And why is there no record of them being stolen? Great concern for us, because these people hardly live by the rules. So in the week after, we recovered the vehicle that Smith had left the scene in. When we searched that vehicle, we found this. This is a homemade machine pistol based on a Sten magazine. It's crude, but just as lethal.
Smith managed to stay in hiding for 9 months, but when he was captured, he was jailed for 7 years on a number of charges, including unlawfully possessing ammunition, firearms, explosives and drugs. And in order to win the fight against weapons, police need your help.
If you are aware of people who have firearms illegally, and particularly the military-style semi-automatics or illegal firearms, then we need to hear about it. And if you haven't got a relationship with your local police station, then perhaps it's time you did.
Whatever you do, don't approach a violent offender. But if you do witness an incident, find weapons or see people acting suspiciously, don't hesitate to call the police. You can also get weapons off the street by helping the police find these people. Mount Wellington Police need your help to identify these men who held up the Meadowbank ASB at 1:30 p.m. on Friday the 30th of May. Both were heavily disguised and are of average height and build. The main offender wore a very distinctive fluoro orange jacket with black and silver panels, similar to that worn by roadworks crew. The second offender wore black exercise pants with white stripes. Now they've burst into the bank terrorising staff and customers with what's described as a sawn-off, double-barrel side-by-side shotgun. They made their getaway in the stolen gold Peugeot 407, which was found minutes after the robbery in the car park of Waiatarua Reserve. Police would urgently like to hear from anyone who saw the car being dumped or who may recognise these men. If you can help, give us a call now on 0800 107 info. That's 0800 107 4636 and press number 1. Armed and dangerous means just that. So remember, don't approach anyone who has a weapon. And if you do have concerns, call the police. Police 107 will be back later this year, so I'll see you then.